We got boots on the ground as the great Nic Osen joins us. How does Wisconsin pull this off, get the title? Let's talk about it all next. Locked on Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. We are talking about the Big Ten tournament title game, Badgers, Wolverines. We got Nic Osen from 247 Sports joining us. Nick, man, let's just start here. What have you been most impressed with this team during the Big Ten tournament run up to this point?
Ryan, absolutely. I think personally it's a lot of what I've been most impressed with throughout this season, and that's kind of their ability to take a punch and not get knocked down. I think especially really about the game against Michigan State. You know, I was sitting with a couple of kind of our colleagues and friends in the media, and I was like, man, that is a rough start, you know, kind of get behind 8 or 9 early. I was a little bit maybe worried how they bounce back, and they just did it with ease. I think a lot of that speaks to kind of the confidence in the staff, the depth, and obviously the maturity levels of this group right now, Ryan.
Well, and I think you hit on it's the veteran poise of this team that is so impressive, and that's something – you know, there'll be runs. I think you probably noticed this too, where Michigan State will go on a run, and Greg Gard just trusts this team. No, go get a bucket. You're a veteran. Tanjay, you're a veteran. I think Greg Gard has done a great job removing himself a little bit from this. That's tough for a lot of coaches, and he's let the veterans play.
That's an amazing point. And, you know, I think it speaks to a lot of this season. He's kind of talked about this. Some of our best teams have been player-led groups, he's been saying. And I think this is a great example. I mean, I'll be honest, Ryan. One of those runs, I thought, okay, I figure a timeout's going to come here, right? And it didn't, but again, he trusts them. And in those moments, I think of a Tanjay bucket or a Klesmit stop or even Steve Crowell. Like, I thought for the first 28 to 30 minutes, he was really good on the glass, whether getting the boards or just boxing out a little bit better than they did in East Lansing. So I think that kind of speaks to what you're talking about, Ryan. And I think today's going to be another example, because if you got to see any of Michigan, Maryland, this team can make some runs too.
Yeah, let's get into it. So first matchup between Wisconsin and Michigan. Michigan wins 67-64 in Madison. And that's a game where the bigs, it's Golden and Wolf. They combined for 44 in that game, I believe. They combined for 46 against Maryland, the game you just referenced. Has there been any talk around the team, or have you picked up on anything where maybe they're going to approach that matchup a little differently, or how they're focused in on those two bigs from Michigan?
Yeah, so it's interesting. After yesterday, there wasn't as much talk right away because obviously, you know, Wisconsin played first, so you didn't know who was going to kind of come up. But I think that while you can attack it a little bit differently, Ryan, I actually don't mind basically if those two are kind of a huge focus in terms of the Wolverines' points, as long as it's kind of like how NBA teams would approach LeBron, right? It's kind of like, okay, let LeBron maybe get his, but you need to cut him off then as a facilitator, meaning you can't let Danny Wolf be this all-star point forward that's going to end up with him being a first-round pick, obviously. You need to just kind of cut off the guards. And like a guy like Trey Donaldson, very skilled, obviously had the game winner Saturday. I don't see him kind of maybe scoring or finding as much success because I love the way the Wisconsin's guards can defend. And I also really question who is going to slow down John Tanjay, because I'm not sure I see that necessarily from a guy like Michigan too.
Yeah, that's a great point on. So Donaldson and Burnett from Michigan, they both average about 4.6 threes per game. They both shoot about 40%. So you can't just go and say, we're going to double team Wolf. We're going to double team Golden, because they got two perimeter guys that'll light you up if you leave them. That's a really good point in terms of let them get their buckets. But then you do have to clean up the glass. That was a big issue in that first game against them. They punished teams on the offensive glass. And I think Crowell from that game and that Illinois game early in the year to where he's been at now, I think you made a great point. His defensive rebounding has been much better. Huge key to the game. Not so much Crowell scoring, but just keeping them off the offensive glass as a team effort. They got to keep Michigan off the boards.
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, he's really been a different player. And I think it speaks to Coach Gard calling him out in December, and obviously Crowell reflecting, and he didn't let that kind of knock him down or anything like that. So I've been really impressed. You also hope that he can provide a little aggressiveness and kind of pressure offensively, right, against Michigan, maybe draw some fouls, get those guys into foul trouble, especially Golden, because I knew what Wolf was a little bit coming into this year. I'm not sure I thought that Vlad would make this type of impact in the Big Ten. You know, it's one thing to do it at FAU, a fine program, but he's been really impressive. I think we need to see what was that game? I think Northwestern, we saw a great game from Nolan Winter. You need a game like that from him, and you also need him to be able to really stay on the floor, not get into foul trouble against those strong, imposing posts that Michigan has.
Yeah, had 4 fouls in the last game. He needs to stay out of foul trouble for sure. And for Badger fans who are tuning in, who maybe forgot a little bit about that Michigan team, they run big-to-big pick and roll. They'll go single side, 2 bigs, pick and roll, and not many teams can do that. It puts you in a ton of trouble, and that's where they're going to attack you, and it makes it tough. Let me ask you about your perspective on Max Klesmit. So we've talked about on the show, it certainly feels like the shooting woes happened when Klesmit got hurt. The offense looks better immediately when he gets back. What is the underrated aspect of Klesmit?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, my guy. I think his ability to basically create gravity a little bit, like you think of some of the best shooters, like a Steph Curry. You know, you're not just worried about him shooting, but the space that he creates. Now, obviously, I'm not saying Klesmit equals Steph Curry, but just in terms of what he brings with this offense. I speak with kind of national analysts here and there and watch some national shows as well. And they talk about how Klesmit, Blackwell, Tanjay, when they're all playing, you've got 3 guys that can ball handle and create a little bit. And so I think even if Klesmit's shot is not on, he brings that to the offense. It's a reason why this team has looked a lot more fluid, a lot more cohesive, and simply just better offensively since he's come back. And when he also can take away generally the opposing team's best wing, like I'm really intrigued to see kind of what they put him on today in terms of the opposing position. I just think he's really important, and I think he deserves credit, not just talking about leadership either.
Yeah, and I think the other hidden part of this, and it dovetails with what you're saying, is when he plays, Blackwell doesn't play 37 minutes. Tanjay doesn't play 37 minutes, right? That's a bear to play 37 minutes and be asked to carry that load offensively for a guy like Tanjay and Blackwell. Their legs are just fresher when you got Klesmit out there for 30.
That's a huge thing, Ryan, and kind of along the same line, it also allows a guy like Kamari McGee to play more his role, which is kind of being that 6th, 7th man and that spark, leading the second unit rather than kind of being forced to start, because I think he can start, but he's a guy that I think operates better in kind of those smaller spark ranges. And I think that is really important. In addition, when you have Klesmit, you also get a little bit more of that bite, right? That competitiveness that Guard said that the team was lacking against Penn State. Now that game feels like forever ago, fortunately, but I'm sure you and I would both agree with that. I mean, I know we were both a little bit shocked about that result. And fortunately, I think the team has kind of wiped most of that away now.
Give me an X factor in this game before we shift off of kind of moving on to another topic I want to hit on. Who is the X factor for the Badgers?
I'm going to go with Nolan Winter. I think that obviously the level of his play is higher than that of an X factor, but like Blackwell, Tanjay, they get a lot of the talk. Steve Crowell with some of what he's done. But this game to me is going to come down to Nolan Winter, whether he can stay out of foul trouble, because he's improved a little bit as a rim protector. But obviously the other guys are probably going to hold the strength advantage, certainly the weight. And then if he can step out and hit, kind of like what I was looking for against Michigan State, drawing some of the posts away from the hoop, especially a guy like Golden. I mean, Wolf is obviously, pretty fluid, but that's what I'm looking for. I'm not saying he's going to be the best player for Wisconsin today, but I think he might be the most important when you factor in the opponent today.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think Kamari McGee as well. It very much feels like when he plays well off the bench, this team hits another level. And when he struggles, the bench scoring isn't always there. So I think he's a big part of this. I want to throw this comment up here, man, because I agree with it. Robert Swartzen, Nic Osen is the greatest portal pickup in the Luke Fickell era.
Man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, fellas.
That's probably true as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back. I want to ping Nick on an article he wrote and talk a little bit about how this might impact recruiting, this new version of Wisconsin and this run that they're going on. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show. And also a quick second, as always, to say thank you for tuning in. Today's episode brought to you by our great friends over at Supply House. Supply House is incredible. We got a bunch of handy people that listen to this show. Supply House allows you to get all the supplies you need for skilled trades at a great price. It's simple. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, whatever it is, they're easy-to-use websites packed with helpful resources, latest product info to help you get the job done right, plus a complete inventory. Over 200,000 parts. That's about how many threes John Tanjay has made this year with over 400 top brands. You'll get exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Today's episode also brought to you by the incredible place over at WayFair. And you can't really see it because I'm still trying to figure out my lighting lately is broke. I don't get why my background is so dark. It looks like I'm in a cave. But my couch behind me is incredible. We literally had a camp out last night with my kids and me. We slept on the couch. We got it at WayFair because where else would we go? WayFair is fast. It's simple, great inventory, easy shopping, delivery. It arrived fast. It's perfect. It's awesome for people like me who have no sense of style. WayFair helps you figure that stuff out. Head over to wayfair.com. Find something that's your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, let's jump back into this with the great Nic Osen. Nic, let me ask you this. You put an article out. I thought it was a great article. You continually just do unique and fun pieces that give Badgers fans a different type of content. Can you talk a little bit about how Badger recruits on the basketball side are reacting to this run and this success and great guard? Is this going to have an impact on recruiting?
Ryan, without a doubt. So I appreciate the compliment, of course. Just going into that a little bit. So a 2026 guard target, and we'll see, kind of how things progress. Obviously, Wisconsin already has 2 guard commits as of now in the class, of course. But Dijon Hall is here. He is from Indianapolis area, and he's back in his home state. He's been checking out the games, and I checked in with a few other commits. Will Garlock, Jackson Ball, and LaTravion Fenderson. And I think the biggest thing is they see the fluidity in the offense. But I think what's also important, especially I think I heard it from Garlock and Fenderson, is they're not losing the focus on the defense still, right? We've seen really good defense played from the Badgers yesterday, especially early. And then obviously in that UCLA game, I mean, they were dominant. And so in terms of recruiting, I believe from what I have kind of heard and following, it could help high school recruiting. Like I've heard some good comments, but I think portal recruiting, Ryan, it is going to be a massive success. I mean, you look at, and this is not a shot at anybody, what AJ Storr was in Madison and what he has or hasn't been at Kansas. And obviously, I still think he's a good player, but the way the guard and the staff put him in such a great position, massive. Then John Tonje, I'm not telling you he's going to win National Player of the Year, but I think he's been a top 2 or 3 player in the entire nation this season. So you grab a wing or somebody that can pick and pop a little bit, why wouldn't you want to play in this offense? I mean it.
Yeah, well, you can also look to Kamari McGee, who it was more of a slow burn, but that's a player they got from Green Bay. Now he's playing a pivotal role on one of the best teams in the Big Ten. Guard has done very well in the portal. And, you've probably done this too. I've talked to a couple high school recruits over the last couple of years, and they've told me off the record, but they've said similar things of, I don't know if I love that style, right? Like I love Madison. It's a family feel. I like great guard, but I don't know as a guard if I want to play in that style. I think now you look at this and, well, this is the style guards want to play with. And I think that can translate quickly.
No, Ryan, great point. And I don't even just say this to overhype. Like, what position in this offense wouldn't you want to play with? You know what I mean? If you're a post but can shoot, it works for you. If you want to be a post and can showcase your passing, look at Steve Prowl, Nolan Winter. If you're a guard, like super versatile like John Blackwell, okay, he's getting point guard reps, but still obviously getting Big Ten honors. He'll probably be like a first or second team guy next year. So really, really impressive. And I think it is only going to help, man.
Nic, we're going to get you out of here on just a couple more quick questions. I know you're busy multitasking, but there was a big discussion about how big of a deal is rest versus momentum for the Big Ten tournament. Well, they're not going to get the rest, but they're clearly going to have the momentum. Is that worth it?
Absolutely. Because I'm fortunate to obviously be in this role. We get to see a practice here and there. You get to know these guys. They're in incredible shape. And when you're in this part of the year, these guys aren't craving like, oh, I need an extra hour or so of rest. These guys want wins. I'm thinking of Max Klesman. I'm thinking of Carter Gilmore, John Tonje, like these older players. All they want right now is wins for Wisconsin. And then I'll even take it a step further, Ryan. Going forward, would a day of rest potentially help? Sure, like going forward in terms of the actual March Madness. But I believe now that Wisconsin has a great chance to be slated in Milwaukee. That's a Friday, Sunday section from what I have heard and read about. So picking up a title, adding that to guard's resume and what this team has done already, I don't think anything tops that, man. I really don't.
Is the Gilmore block the play of the year? Does anything else stand out to you right away?
Ooh. I mean, Tanje's play a couple seconds later was pretty dang cool too. Obviously, Gilmore's was more impressive and probably a little bit more needed in that moment. I know Tanje's scared a lot. kind of that play scared a lot of people at first, looking like it might be a foul. I'm trying to think, man. Gilmore's up there for sure. A couple of those shots that Tanjay hit against Arizona need to be up there, and certainly Purdue as well. Wow, very nice comment.
Zach also says, I missed the chance, especially with Nick on. Zach Bartz is a big Nic Osen fan. A lot of people, big Nic Osen fans, myself included. Nick, last question here, man, because you're already being super gracious with your time. Where can people find your work and everything that you're doing and putting out?
Thank you so much, Ryan. I'm a big Zach fan too, by the way. Badger 247, 247sports.com. I'm very fortunate. I've been here. Colleague Evan is here, and our guy Payne is back home in Madison with spring football coverage. So we've had everything covered. Recruiting updates, still some more to come. Busy times, Ryan, but nothing better, my friend, truly.
Thank you, Nick, as always, for tuning in. On Locked On Badgers, obviously, we're going live after the game. We're also doing a selection show, and then we're talking some football later. There's going to be 3 or 4 shows today. So I got my coffee, but it's a great time, and I'm always grateful for the time with Nic Osen. Go check out his work on 247 on Wisconsin. Beat Michigan, and we'll talk later.